After the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the Blue Hedgehog was definitely not slowing down. Sonic CD, originally conceived as an enhanced port of Sonic 2, was released for the Sega CD, and the American developers of Sega Technical Institute worked on Sonic Spinball, but I have neither of those games at the moment. I do have the Sonic game released after that, the one that was worked on by the Japanese developers of Sega Technical Institute, one that was so ambitious and heavily marketed that it reluctantly had to be split into 2 games, one that introduced the red Echidna Knuckles. This is my review of the 1994 game Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. After the adventures on South Island in Sonic the Hedgehog and West Side Island in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Dr. Robotnik's heavily armoured ship, the Death Egg, that Sonic and Tails destroyed, crash lands on a mysterious floating island. Robotnik learns that the island is powered by Chaos Emeralds and tricks the guardian of the emeralds known as Knuckles so he can obtain them. Knuckles is led to believe that Sonic and Tails are there to steal the emeralds, so he steals all the other emeralds that Hedgehog and Fox obtained in Sonic 2. Which is now proved to be canon, though again all the emeralds was optional. And from that point on, it's the usual Sonic must stop Robotnik premise. However, it's presented in a way that is more ambitious than previous games. It's essentially as cinematic as it could be for a Sonic game at the time. For example, at the end of the first zone/level, Knuckles steps on a switch which results in the bridge Sonic is standing on giving way, and Sonic is temporarily stuck in Hydra City Zone before he can find Knuckles again. That Red Echidna and Robotnik show up in scenes like these, and it's simple yet effective. Speaking of Knuckles, there are differences to the story, but we'll come back to that. The graphics are better than the past games in the tiniest of ways, with the foregrounds and backgrounds again being the most notable. Everything is colourful, vibrant and smooth as a 2D Sonic game should be. But there's a debatable change. Sonic's sprite. Sonic's sprite was pretty much the same in the first 2 games, but here, it's mostly in his eyes and he doesn't seem as cool. Still, the characters and settings, while dated, come to life nicely. Can the same be said about the music this time? Well, yes and no. Whatever superlatives describe the previous Sonic game soundtracks apply here, but a few tunes are surprisingly annoying, which doesn't help when they're looped. Still, there are some good ones, and it's good to hear that each act of each zone has a slightly different arrangement for the overall soundscape. Compare Acts 1 and 2 of Angel Island Zone, for example. Wait, you're saying that Michael Jackson composed parts of the music uncredited, and that Ice Cap Zone track sounds like Hard Times by the Jetsons? Nope, can't tell. Nope, not at all. Not at all. The gameplay of platforming and dashing around at high speeds while stopping enemies and avoiding obstacles and traps should be familiar to anyone who's played a Sonic game. But there are some interesting changes. If the cutscenes could prove how more ambitious a Sonic game could get at this point, then the levels did too. These zones are big and are quite possibly the most open in a Sonic game at this point. In fact, if you take your time exploring the floating islands, don't be surprised if that 10-minute time limit decreases Sonic's life count by 1. Well, it's either that, or an enemy, or an obstacle, or trap, or bottomless pit. Rings can save Sonic from most of that trouble, provided he has at least one. Same as usual. Also, there are shields that can help. Previously, there was only one kind of shield that went away when Sonic was hurt. Now there are fire, water, and electrical shields that help in their own ways, whether it be preventing fire damage or drowning, as well as attracting nearby rings like a magnet. The controls are the same as before, and excel in their simplicity. In fact, if you press the A, B, or C button while Sonic is jumping, Sonic does a little attack, moving, jumping, and even spin dashing back to make Sonic move fast, as well as Tails and Knuckles, for that matter. Yes, Tails and Knuckles are also playable. Again, this Sonic game gets more ambitious the more I review it. In fact, Sonic 3 was so ambitious it had to be split into 2 games. There is Sonic 3 and there is Sonic & Knuckles. Combine them with the lock-on technology of a Sonic & Knuckles cartridge, and you've got essentially the full package. This lock-on technology was replicated in other releases, including the Wii Virtual Console releases. First of all, Sonic 3 only has 6 zones. They are generally fun to play, but quite a few of them have sprints and other mechanisms that send Sonic or whoever you're playing as around the zone in a quick linear fashion with little need for button inputs. This could happen in past games, but not to the extent that is seen in Sonic 3. This means that Sonic 3 is somewhat short and easy. Sonic & Knuckles, on the other hand, features a few more zones and seems a bit more challenging. In both games, the level design is open as mentioned before, and the multiple character choices lends itself to this. Tails was basically a cosmetic change for the Blue Hedgehog in Sonic 2, but here Tails can fly for a short time when pressing a button after a jump, allowing him to reach new heights, as well as swim. Knuckles has a lower jump, but can glide, climb, and is strong enough to go through walls and areas that Sonic and Tails cannot. When you combine the two games, you can play as Knuckles in Sonic 3. Also, depending on whether you play Sonic 3 or Sonic and Knuckles as single games, or play as a specific character, or collect a certain number of emeralds, the game's ending can change. Speaking of the emeralds, collecting them is challenging as per usual, but seems fairer this time around. This time, your character navigates a giant globe, brought to life again with a dated yet effective 3D look. On this giant globe are blue spheres that have to be collected if you want to get the emerald. Not necessarily an easy task when bumpers, red spheres. Avoid them! Oh, darn it. Jumpy orange spheres and the increasing speed are contributing factors. To enter the special stage to find an emerald, one has to find a giant ring in a zone, and they can be very well hidden. The number of giant rings does give you plenty of opportunity to collect the emeralds if you stuff up any given special stage, with each of them having different layouts. Oh, and guess what? Sonic & Knuckles has its own group of special stages, which can only be unlocked when you have the 7 Chaos Emeralds that can be collected when beginning Sonic 3. These special stages seem harder, but you'll have to persevere if you want to get the Super Emeralds. Wow! The rewards at different endings are worth collecting the emeralds for, with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles having different abilities. Oh, and did I mention you can play as Knuckles in Sonic 2? If you connect the Sonic 2 cartridge? See? DLC existed back in the 90s, it would seem. There is some sphere stuff or something when connected to Sonic 1, but I don't have time to look at that. Whoops. Sonic 3 and Knuckles has what is quite possibly some of the highest replay value in a 2D Sonic game. Considering all this praise, their problems. Well, apart from the aforementioned aspect of Sonic 3's length and relatively easy difficulty level, some of the frustrations from previous games are brought back in one way or another. Some sections are frustrating, including bumping into enemies and traps and obstacles when you're going fast. There are of course bottomless pits, even the special stages can be frustrating. Also, there seem to be quite a few glitches here. Past games weren't lacking in them, but it seemed to be quite easy to get stuck in Launch Base Zone, for example. Better not to go too fast sometimes, huh? Also, the replay value does extend to the wide variety of bosses, which feature not only Robotnik but some bigger badniks. But a number of them are still easy, which is a bit of a shame. The 2-player mode is back, and there is not much to say about it other than it looks nicer, features unique zones, plays better, and even has a time attack mode for the lone player. But much like Sonic 2, it really is not up to the quality of the main game. In conclusion, a case can be made for Sonic 3 and Knuckles being one of the best, if not the best, 2D Sonic games. It's got more replay value, it's got nice graphics and sound, it's got you playing as Sonic and other characters dashing about at high speeds, and exploring large worlds, sometimes uncovering surprising pathways, secrets and special stages with emeralds, complete with a possibility of new abilities and endings. While the introduction of Knuckles, in retrospect, seemed to start a trend where more and more kinds of characters were introduced to the Sonic series, which may not have sat well with fans, things like that and other problems to be had in the game are mostly drowned out by the positives that combine together to make a very fun Sonic game. If you haven't even played this one, well, you gotta go faster and play it anywhere you can. Except it's not on the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive Mini. Darn! Must be the music or something. I just want to end this review quickly by saying thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed Sonic the Hedgehog Week on this channel, Video Games for Fun. Sonic Mania was supposed to be part of it, but hey, I'll review it soon. You can never have enough Sonic. I've certainly enjoyed reviewing the games, the film, and looking back at Sonic's history. Have a good day or night or whatever it is, and enjoy your chili dogs. Yeah, I really don't know how to end these.